watched and sat in the courtroom for the entire trial, and I could not help but scream in my mind, "You have taken my wife, and you have taken my life as well."
That is an angry Harvey Adelson, and one of tonight's guests actually saw this same rage in Harvey Adelson back in 2014, and she was in that courtroom again yesterday, here to tell us today what she saw then and what she saw now. What's up, STS Nation? Welcome to Surviving the Survivor. This is the show that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime, and you're in for a special treat today. Today, we are breaking down the explosive courtroom statements from both Donna Sue Adelson, who's already been kicked out of Tallahassee, believe it or not. We'll discuss that in a moment, as well as her husband, Harvey Adelson. It is the latest chapter in the murder of beloved FSU law professor Dan Markel. Donna, now a convicted killer. At her sentencing hearing, she railed against the justice system. Harvey, red-faced with anger, accused the court and the media of bias. Is there anything to that? Let's bring in our best guest today, and starting off with a friend of mine, friend of the show, all-around great person, Tamara Demko, who's also a former friend of Dan Markel, and Tamara is a Harvard Law School grad. I was going to say she's looking, she's got the glasses on. She's looking very scholarly. And then next up, of course, one of the more beloved best guests right here, Stephen Webster. He is Dan Markel's post-divorce attorney and a defense attorney in the great city of Tallahassee, and obviously became friends with Dan through the course of working with him. And tonight, we're really going to take a hard look at both Donna and Harvey's statements. But let me start with Tamara. Tamara, you were in the courtroom yesterday, and I know that because I saw you in the gallery and told everyone, hey, that's my friend Tamara. What was it like? It was surreal to watch it just on camera, just the lunacy of the whole thing, which is what we're going to dive into. But what was it like to actually be there and see kind of this deflection, complete deflection from Donna, and this sort of rage and anger from Harvey?
We weren't supposed to show any emotion, so I might have been screaming in my mind as I was listening to the entire thing myself, but I was flabbergasted. I think everyone was very shocked that Harvey and Donna decided to take that angle to discussing sentencing. It was supposed to be speaking to her character. I think that Harvey certainly showed his yesterday.
Webster, I'm pretty sure you were not in court, but you're up on all things Tallahassee. You live there. Stephen's got an awesome story of having done construction work and then got into the law to try to help somebody. And here he is, an attorney, and he was helping Dan out. I know you've read about this and you've probably watched some clips as well. Did you expect this? I mean, some people sort of expected this from the Adelsons, but I guess the degree to which they sort of stripped themselves of any wrongdoing was pretty amazing to watch, just in terms of the sociopathy there.
I can't say I was expecting it. I won't say I was surprised either. They really had nothing to lose yesterday, so they could say just about anything they wanted, and there were going to be no additional sanctions imposed. She was getting life anyway. But yeah, I was a little bit shocked with the level of vitriol and anger that he demonstrated. He's always been painted by and large to me as, kind of the one that's just kind of there going along to get along. And, I certainly saw a different side of him yesterday than what I was expecting to see.
Vitriolic nastiness, that's LEM's description. I mean, Tamara, how would you describe it, having sat through it? And then we're going to get to the fact that Donna's already been kicked out of Leon County. I'm going to ask Webster about that. And also, by the way, we're supposed to be joined by former Florida State Attorney for Palm Beach, who's a friend of Tamara, also a Harvard Law graduate, Dave Arenberg. He should be popping in any moment. But I mean, what adjectives would you use to describe? Because I'm rarely speechless, but I was kind of speechless. The only word I could come up with was chutzpah. audacity might be another word, but how do you describe it?
The complete lack of remorse that just shone through in every single word that was said, both by Harvey and Donna, was shocking. I think people in the courtroom couldn't believe what they were hearing. I had seen aspects of that in Harvey before, which I'll talk about later, but it was jaw-dropping.
Yeah.
Simply unexpected.
Webster, to you, my phone started popping up with Vine alerts. From what the reports I'm getting is Donna Adelson could have been sent out of Leon County's jurisdiction as late as last night. I mean, literally after the sentencing. Apparently, they want no part of her. She was causing a lot of issues in the county jail. Not necessarily, I mean, she was complaining and whining about everything, but also being a high-profile inmate, they didn't want her there. So she's already been shipped out. Number one, are you at all surprised that it's less than 24 hours, far less than 24 hours, and it's goodbye, Donna? And number two, you've got clients who've ended up in various prisons around the state. Where do you expect her to go? What's the process now for her?
If they shipped her out last night, I would be surprised by that. That they were doing a DOC bus transport kind of in the evening hours, and maybe even in the dark. I wouldn't think that would normally happen. If it was, but today I wouldn't be surprised. I kind of expected that the sheriff would want her out of his jail as soon as possible. Like you said, she's high profile. Now she's a convicted murderer. So for all those reasons, those are the kind of inmates that the sheriff wants out of the county jail as soon as he can get them out. And now she's going to go to the Women's Reception Center. It's in Ocala, Florida, and having spoken to people that are familiar with how that process works, it's a very unpleasant process when you kind of get classified there, and they want to make it clear that you are an inmate now. You are not really a human being in the eyes of the law. You're just your property. And so they treat you that way. It's kind of like being indoctrinated into prison, and they try to do it in 2 weeks or less. And it's, from what I've heard, it's just a really grueling process.
Yeah, and Tamara, I know you've got a law degree. You don't practice law right now, but you're tapped into this whole world. To Webster's point, it's going to be incredibly dehumanizing. She's going to have just an inmate number now. Are you at all familiar with the process there? I mean, not you personally, but having known people or potentially clients, do you have a sense of what's going to happen to her in the next couple of weeks? Because it sounds like it's going to be miserable.
It sounds like it will be miserable. I don't have that kind of knowledge of the situation, so I wouldn't want to speculate.
Yeah, and Stephen Webster, not to harp on it, but I was reading, and over the summer, it's like 75% of Lowell, which is the prison she might end up at, doesn't have air conditioning. That is something I can tell you. Saturday night, I drove my kids by the Icon, and I told them the story about the bump, which I probably shouldn't do because my kids are 11, 9, and 6. And they're like, what the hell are you talking about? But drove by nonetheless and told them I've become friends with this cool FBI guy, and they all want to meet him now. But that's one of the nicer buildings south of 5th Street, which is one of the nicest areas of South Beach. And now she's going into a prison system. And by the way, Thursday, we're going to get you some former female inmates to discuss all this in depth. What is that going to be like for her? I mean, she spent close to 2 years in the Leon County / Wakulla County. Here he is. Dave Arenberg has appeared out of nowhere. But what do you think that experience is going to be like? We're talking about Donna's first couple of weeks in prison here. But Webster, is she going to suffer gravely in those first few weeks?
Yeah, and I'm not trying to bask in her suffering, but it's going to be miserable. And, it's going to be markedly different from the Leon County Jail, which is no pleasure cruise, obviously. It's a jail. So, I mean, in some respects, having spent 2 years on Leon County Jail may give her, an advantage on making that transition. But it's an enormous transition from jail to prison. Enormous transition.
Yeah. And Dave Arenberg only knows about this, not firsthand experience, but because he is the former Florida state attorney. One of the things we were just talking about, Dave, and welcome to you. I'm getting word that Donna may have been transferred as early as last night. That's how badly they wanted her out of Leon County and out of Tallahassee, and they moved her to Ocala. So she's now in the possession of the Florida Department of Corrections. Number one, are you surprised that they wanted to get rid of her that badly, that they literally may have sent her out? And if it didn't happen last night, it happened in the early hours today. She's now, I just got another alert, she's officially in Florida DOC custody. Number one, are you surprised? Number two, to Webster's point, what's this experience do you think going to be like for her?
Clubber Lang, remember Rocky?
Yeah.
III?
Yeah.
What was the one word he said? Pain. and Webster's right. I don't want to make light of it, but after her antics and Harvey's antics at the sentencing, it's hard to feel sympathy for them. I mean, they are unrepentant, unremorseful, and even Harvey criticized Dan's parents. I mean, haven't they been through enough? Calling them liars. So, no, I don't feel any sympathy for them. This is what happens when you commit crimes. I'm talking about Donna and talking about Charlie. Now, as far as am I surprised she's moved out so quickly? I think it's once you're convicted, you're in the hands of DOC, Department of Corrections, and once you've been sentenced, and so then DOC takes control, and then the process goes into place. So I think this is pretty normal that she's moved. There's no reason for Leon County to have to spend another dime. I mean, Leon County has spent enough on these trials that they're probably saying, okay, state of Florida, you pay for it now. And they are. And so, no, I'm not surprised by any of this.
Yeah. How about and there's some news, there were rumors swirling today, which I'm going to get to regarding Wendy in just one second. But Dave, the sentencing hearing yesterday, I know you're a busy guy. I'm sure you caught bits and pieces of it. Just your 30,000 foot Learjet view of it. What do you think overall? It was a pretty insane sentencing hearing, not one that most people see on a typical sentencing day.
Yeah, the big question I had throughout the whole thing is, why did Donna decide to show no remorse and just go at it with the judge and retry her case and proclaim her innocence? But she did more than that. She actually tried to cast doubt on the evidence, and really was part of an effort with Harvey to also accuse the court of being biased. And it was ugly and it was disgraceful. But as far as the question for me is, why did she do that? Why couldn't she just let Harvey play bad cop, and then she could have played good cop and perhaps gotten some sort of sentence below the guidelines? But in reality, she knew her goose was cooked. She knew she'd be in prison for life because it's mandatory for the main count. And then the other stuff is icing on the cake. But I figured out why. And I think Tim Jansen alluded to it, because not only do I watch the sentencing, I always watch STS. But I think the answer to the question of why Donna did this is because she was playing to an audience of two, Ben and Lincoln, her grandkids. She really does love her grandkids and cares. She cares what they think of her. And she wants the last time they hear her grandmother speak about the case to be her professed innocence, that she maintained her innocence. And that to her is more important than anything else. She knows she's going to die in prison, but wanted to set the narrative for her kids. The thing is, those kids are getting to the age where they're going to find the truth themselves.
It's interesting you bring that up. I get a lot of great emails. I would say best guest, better community. But I got an email from a longtime viewer who happens to be working in child psychology, and she was giving me her take, and it was interesting and I guess kind of upsetting. And I might get her on the show just at that age, kind of what you're capable of handling. And there's so much that they're dealing with, but I just hope that those kids are okay. Now, this is the other bit of news that's been kind of rumoring around the rumor mill. Judy D, Vinny discussing, that's the great Vinny Politan, who, by the way, I heard had meniscus surgery. So I hope Vinny is healing up. I hope I didn't break HIPAA violations there. But Vinny, by the way, I've had a torn meniscus for 5 years. I come from a family of all doctors. They told me, take Tylenol, it'll heal itself, you'll be fine. And 5 years later, I can barely walk on it. So don't listen to doctors, especially not in your family. Where was I now? What was I just saying? There had a comment up there, Dave, and now I'm completely completely forgetting here. But
Grand jury and Wendy.
grand jury, yeah. So see the COE, yeah. So took down my comment. That's why. So I started getting texts from all sorts of people. Wendy's about to get indicted. There's a grand jury. There's a grand jury. We were able to confirm, Dave Arenberg, that this grand jury is meeting about something completely unrelated. It's a political matter in the great state of Florida that involves Ron DeSantis' wife, without getting into politics.
Ooh.
Yes. So it is not related, but you're the one who boldly predicted 30 to 45 days post-sentencing, which would put us sometime in, I don't know, early December, maybe, if I'm right about
I thought before Thanksgiving. Yeah.
before Thanksgiving. I mean, Tamara, what do you think? I mean, there was all this hype today with this notion that there was this grand jury hearing, which there was, but you know this case a little bit, that they're actually grand jurying over, Tamara. But I don't know. Have you, in this process, when people find out it is not Wendy related, I guess there's a sort of a little bit of air that's let out of the balloon, and people get deflated. Are you deflated hearing this, that it's not Wendy related?
I am not deflated.
Good. That's good.
Always there.
Webster, are you deflated at all, knowing that it has now been less than 24 hours and Wendy is not handcuffed?
Well, I'm not deflated, but I mean, certainly I like the thought of that. But I think when I was on your show last time after the guilty verdict came down, I'd said I think it'd be about 3 months, after the conviction. I think the state would want to take a breath naturally, and kind of decompress and get ready for the next phase. And if I'm correct, I hope I'm correct. I hope Dave's actually correct. That's even probably faster than what I said, but it can't come fast enough for me.
I mean, but Webster, do you think it's coming at all? I hate to ask that question.
I mean, I do. Yeah, I feel like the way that the evidence is just built upon itself in every trial. And I think now, with Wendy engaging in all the code talk and clearly trying to set up, I believe what was the alibi with the TV repair. And then, the statements that she made to several people about, her brother looking into hiring a hitman, and including that last time she mentioned that to Jeff Lacasse right there before the murder. And he said she wasn't joking when she said it. It was very chilling. It sent chills down his spine, so much so that he talked to a colleague and a friend about it. I just think there's more than ample evidence to get it to a jury. And if you get it to a jury, you're going to have the same result that we've had in the last 2 years. Be guilty within 3 hours.
To both Dave and Tamara, but I'll start with Dave here. I mean, you knew Dan, obviously. And Dave, I don't know about you as much as Tamara. Did you know the Adelsons at all? Had you met them prior to this?
I didn't think so, but turns out I did. I was reminded by someone that I had.
They left a great impression on you, obviously. You forgot all about them.
Well, I actually met Charlie at some point. A friend of mine reminded me that met him at a political event a couple years before the murder. I did not remember meeting him, but yeah. So that was surprising because I've been talking pretty starkly about it. I've not held back, and I guess at some point I talked to him and met him, and 2 years later he was involved with murdering our friend Danny, and I'm looking forward to this case continuing. I do not believe it's over. I think that very likely Wendy is next. I think Georgia, I thought, tipped her hand afterwards saying, stay tuned. That's what she said last time when the question was, will Donna be next? And so she chooses her words carefully because she's a prosecutor. So I do think she'll be next.
Dave, I hope you go to the YouTube store. We got a merch store there, and there's T-shirts that now say "Stay tuned" thanks to COE. And I was wearing mine the other day, and I kind of love it. And you know who called me was Phil Markel because he saw the "Was It Worth It" shirt. We have a "Was It Worth It" shirt, and I'm going to send him some as a gift. I feel so bad for Robert. He's such a great guy, stuck in a family of criminals. Tamara, to you, you knew the Adelsons. We're going to go to Donna in a second, but just as sort of a little preview of what's to come from you, is what we saw in court yesterday from Harvey and Donna, does it mirror reality? Is it kind of what you remember them being like?
It is closer to my last impressions of them in person, where Donna said the right things, but perhaps was disingenuous, and where Harvey had an undercurrent of an aggressive nature.
And then there's Rob Adelson, Steve Webster. Before we get to Donna's sound, and we're going to break it down, kind of clip by clip. I don't, to me, Rob Adelson is sort of the unheralded hero of the Donna Adelson trial, without question. A lot of the jurors said that it was really Chris Corbett's testimony. And it's funny because I think it was Harvey. It was either Harvey or Donna that called out Chris Corbett in terms of the jurors not listening to him, which is hilarious because when I spoke to them, all three jurors said that to them he was the most important witness that they were listening to intently. But just your thoughts on Rob Adelson having this courage to sort of come out and testify when needed. Even Georgia said she didn't want to call him, but for this trial, she needed him.
Yeah, I worked at the state attorney's office here in the Second Circuit, and contrary to probably kind of what you might think and what you may see in television and movies, I mean, rarely would I call a family member. I just wouldn't do it. Even if you thought for sure they had some information they could offer, it's just, you just don't like to do stuff like that. And thank God for him and his integrity and him having enough respect for Dan's life and the Markel family that he understood that there's only one right answer here, and that was to try to help figure out and hold accountable anybody who was responsible for the murder. And he obviously played an invaluable role in that.
Yeah.
And I feel I was slated to testify, and after his testimony, I got word from the state that they didn't think they would call me. And my wife said, "Are you going to testify?" And I said, I don't think they're going to call me. And she was watching the trial. She said, "They don't need to do anything else after Rob's testimony." And I kind of talked to Catherine later. And I think that was the sentiment. You can read a room with a jury, and sometimes you just know you've got them. And if you've got them, finish your case, wind it up, and sit down.
Yeah. Speaking of reading a room, you're not allowed to talk or emote in court, but everyone kind of looks at each other. So Tamara, I'm just wondering, what was the feeling in the gallery when this was all going on? Because the tension level had to be, rising with each kind of passing moment. You had Harvey and then obviously Donna at the very end. Was it super tense in there?
Everyone was just very quiet, waiting to see what Judge Everett would do and how he would respond. And he was incredible. But everyone was completely incredulous of everything that was being said. Everyone was looking at each other like, did they really just say that? Mm-hmm. Did Donna just really say that, Danny was lost to us and that they were his family after all of that? There was a lot of looks of like, I can't believe I'm hearing this.
Yeah. Look at this comment. A Duchess here. Joel spotted that aggressive nature of Harvey. Not to pat myself on the back, I did call this. But who called this from day one is Carm. Anyone who watched that yesterday and doesn't think that Harvey at least had knowledge of this has got to be living on the moon, because you see how aggressive he is. He handles all the money for the most part, along with Donna in that family. He's incredibly frugal. There was not money going out, in my opinion. This is just my opinion, to people like Katie Magbanua without the patriarch of the family at least having some knowledge of this. Now that I said that, I'll probably bump into him in front of the icon in like 7 hours. But God bless Robert. He is the hero of this family. Now, without further ado, let's get into this. We're going to really focus and hone in here on Donna and Harvey. The COE has clipped Donna into 5 clips. I'm going to start here. This is the one where she is saying, "There's no evidence. How could you have possibly convicted me? These jurors are idiots and morons. There's zero evidence." Here's Donna Adelson.
The evidence before July 18th, 2014 at 10:50 a.m. that revealed that I had any involvement in this vile and horrific act. Where is the solicitation and conspiracy evidence? The state needed to show that there was evidence before the murder to convict me. The state couldn't show.
Let me just stop it right there. Dave Arenberg, they didn't have evidence before. It seems to me like they had a lot of evidence. They had wiretaps. They had all the code language. I guess it's a two-part question. She's proclaiming something that just simply isn't true, at least in the eyes of normal people. And number two, should Judge Everett have stepped in here a little bit earlier? Like, this is what this part I didn't understand at all. You know, he kind of let this all happen. And even with Donna, I'll get to this more, but her attorneys did not want her to be sworn in, which I'd never heard before. Should the judge have, I don't know, put a stop to it earlier?
Judge Everett is a great judge, and he realized that the defense is going to lean in on his alleged bias on appeal. Remember, you heard it from Harvey, you heard it suggested by Donna, and the defense lawyers have been about this should have been moved, this should have been a different judge. And so Judge Everett did not want to give them any more grounds for arguing that. Didn't want to have to say, no, I take offense at what you said, how you said I'm biased. Now, remember when the defense lawyer said, Jackie said that, oh, I'm sorry, I'm sure that you're offended by this. And he said, no, I'm not. He wanted to make sure that there was no grounds for appealing him on bias. So that's why he did a perfect job letting her speak, even allowing Harvey to finish. The reason why Harvey didn't continue with his diatribe was not because of Judge Everett, is because his own lawyer took or crossed out most of the paragraphs on a statement that she should have read before Harvey said it. And as far as your other thing about evidence, well, yeah, remember in the opening arguments at the trial, this was a train. And the reason why you don't see a lot of evidence before the murder against Donna, other than clear evidence of motive, is that the train cars did not talk or bump into any other cars except for the one in front of them. This was by design. And there's plenty of evidence of motive. And then you do have the delivery of money on the night of the murder. And I know Donna she knew that was harmful, and she tried to say even their own witness said this didn't happen. The phone record didn't show it.
That was the Corbett swipe.
Yeah, I remember quite like Donna remembers it. I don't remember Corbett being a great witness for the defense.
Yeah. I got to put this back up. Dave Ehrenberg didn't see this. From Ellie. It's been 2 years watching Dave Ehrenberg on STS in the fan club, and I still feel he is the sexiest man alive. People Magazine, Surviving the Survivor at gmail.com. Would you like to comment on that, Dave Ehrenberg?
Well,
you're blushing.
Ellie, not only are you brilliant, but you also have great taste. So thank you.
She's also Dave's wife, using a pseudonym. Webster, before I continue here, now that we're in a pause, I had never, I'm not a lawyer and I don't spend that much time in courtrooms. I'd never seen a lawyer get up and specifically ask for their client to not be sworn in. What was your reaction or thought about that? It was pretty wild and strange, I thought.
Yeah, I still don't understand the strategy. I'm sure there's some strategy there. I've never seen that either. But I just don't know I don't know why that's any better than her just being sworn.
Tamara, any thoughts on this?
I think what no one's saying here is the irony in her, at the very end of her speech, swearing that she had nothing to do with it on her kids and on her grandkids, and she wouldn't stand up and swear in court.
That's why she went to Harvard Law. Great
That
point.
is so true. And they're calling out everyone else for lying, and yet you won't even go on the road, right? No, unsworn. Okay, who's the liar?
Okay, so this is Donna. I will not interrupt till this clip is over. Here we go.
Know that because there wasn't any evidence. They were trying an innocent person. It makes you wonder if the jurors were sleeping when the state had Sergeant Corbett on the stand for hours. Their own star witness testified that my phone was never, I repeat, never at my son's house on the night of the murder. The state's theory that my husband and I dropped off money to my son was blown out of the water by their own witness. And yet, the state continued to push that story, that lie of the so-called money drop, to the jury through the remainder of the trial. And the jury bought into it, hook, line, and sinker. Reasonable doubt.
I can't get over the Queen's accent there. It's it is what it is. But Tamara, what she doesn't mention is that Corbett found, I think it was an hour and 6 or an hour and 8 minutes where the phones are off. There's a lapse in time there. Again, I mean, this is just audacity at its peak performance here. But she is, to Dave's point, I think, speaking to her grandkids. But she's also got a real she's like OJing herself. She's trying to convince herself that she didn't really do it. Maybe is that possible?
I think that she is in a denial and believes a lot of the things she says. I think she makes it true for herself. I can't tell you what exactly she was doing that night, but I can tell you that on the day that Danny died, she directly said to me in person that she and Harvey were at dinner in Miami and got a call, and they drove straight up, which we know is not true at all, and that they expected to find Danny alive. And it was just incredible what had happened. She said the right things.
Yeah.
She said the right things, as she didn't technically said in court yesterday, but they were not true.
But tell me this again. She told you this when this happened. This was, you guys were speaking at, was it the memorial? Did you just say?
No. On July 19th, the day that Danny passed, I went over to Wendy's house.
Okay.
And I saw Wendy, Donna, and Harvey that morning, that day.
And she said, we came straight up here.
Yes.
At that point, and Tamara's got a lot of like inside knowledge here. I mean, at that point, and I asked Josh Berman, who is a Harvard Law School friend of Dan's, who was on the show last week. It was pretty obvious that Dan was having problems with Wendy, but did you guys suspect the Adelsons that early on? Was that something that crossed your mind?
It's one of the reasons I went to Wendy's house, to be honest. I kind of wanted to feel out the situation. I wanted it to not be true. But I didn't know who was involved. I just wanted to connect and see, like, was there something off there? Because I found out about Danny passing through an email. I hadn't seen him since June 4th, the day that they came up to scout. He had taken me out for my birthday to dinner that night. But yes, so the 19th, I went over to Wendy's house, and I don't want to get too into other things, but Wendy answered the door, and she saw me and she looked at me, and even in my grief-stricken state, I thought this was an odd response, but she said, "I'm so sorry," to me, which I thought was odd coming from an ex-wife to a friend. But I did interact with Donna and Harvey. Donna said to me, TJ, which was my nickname at the time, "Oh, TJ, I can't believe this happened. We were at dinner. We got this call. We drove straight up all night. We expected to see him." And it's just incredible. She said the right things. And then Harvey came out of the bedroom area where the boys had been. And I was turned away from him. And he said, "Hey, TJ." And I turned around and I looked at him, and we locked eyes. And this really strange sensation came over me. And I just felt like kind of scared, honestly. And then he couldn't look at me at that point. His eyes dropped. And at that point, the whole vibe of the just being there didn't feel right. I felt scared. And I thought, if they can kill Danny in broad daylight in his driveway, and they're sensing something from me, I need to get out of here. I mean, I was so concerned. I went and talked to a priest for 3 hours. I bought a gun that day because it was that intimidating. And I'll tell you something I haven't told any other podcaster so far, on live anyway. I grew up in Coral Springs, exactly a mile away from the Adelsons' house, but I did not know them in high school, as our years didn't quite align. So, a side note here, at the memorial, notably the Adelsons sat in the very back, which was July 20th. And there was ample opportunity for them to say any of the beautiful words that we heard out of Donna's mouth yesterday, any of the care and concern. In fact, I haven't heard them over the last 11 years. But at this memorial, Harvey physically got uncomfortably close to me at a couple of points. 2 days after the memorial, he friended me on Facebook, which I took as a passive aggressive move because clearly there was an odd vibe. And then Donna called up her son, Rob Adelson. And she said to Rob, "Your friend from high school is being mean to us," referring to me. Rob Adelson found this very odd because he didn't know me from high school, but named me. So there was concern right away that something was off. And I had not said anything negative to them at all. Suddenly, my laptop was being forensically analyzed to make sure I wasn't a part of it. And then Stephen Webster, best guest, July 30th to 31st, around there, so week and a half after, Stephen Webster called me up and said, "I don't know what you did to piss off the Adelsons, but they think you're public enemy number one." This was a very, very scary thing to have happen. And so I was so concerned, and I had two young children at the time. I moved. I didn't want to be in Tallahassee. I literally just took off. I'm like, this is a really scary situation. Nobody in Tallahassee wants to believe the Adelsons were involved at all. And I left. Poor Stephen, I never even called him back because the conversation scared me so much. I ghosted him. Sorry, Stephen. Apologies after all these years.
Wow.
But I will say this. In October of 2016, so a couple of years later, the South Florida Sun-Sentinel published an article noting that I was suspicious of Harvey. And I didn't even know my police interview was being watched by anyone at that point, but it published. Guess who unfriended me on Facebook that very day? Harvey. So I will say that Harvey's demeanor and personality, what came out, felt passive aggressive. I was also told by someone who'd worked in their practice that Harvey knew every detail of what happened in that practice. And he was not necessarily the passive person that people believed. So to your best guests that are listening who are saying that that's very scary right now, it was terrifying. And it took many years for anyone to think the Adelsons were involved. So I couldn't really talk to people. And it's taken until yesterday for Harvey to show some of his true colors. So that is why I'm talking to you today.
Wow. Well, number one, kudos to you for having the courage to open up now. Number two, I don't even think Dave Arenberg has ever heard any of this by the expression on it. Have you heard any of this before, Dave?
Yes, I have heard some, but this is the first time I've heard it said publicly, and I give her a lot of credit for speaking up, Tamara, because that is something that has never been said, I think, publicly, and STS gets another exclusive. And that's really I've heard most of this, but the fact that it's now being shared with the world is something else.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't want to compare apples to oranges, but I'll tell you, I've said this 1,000 times on the show. Just seeing him, Harvey, at the Metro Deli was a sort of a frightening experience. The glare I got from that dude, but I never heard the guy speak, I don't think, until literally yesterday. Webster, to you, do you remember calling Tamara and telling her that you had heard that she was public enemy number one of the Adelsons? And if you don't mind, how did you get that information?
So Tamara reached out to me. And we kind of reminisced and tried to recreate history because she didn't call me for 11 years. But today when I saw Tamara on my phone, I was like, is this that? I didn't even answer. I was like, is this who I think it is? And anyway.
Tamara's she's mysterious, by the way, so that doesn't even surprise me. But go ahead.
She reached out to me, and at that time, I kind of desperately wanted a friend that was kind of inside of this case. So I don't know. I wanted an ally to feel like I could have somebody to kind of commiserate with, frankly. And at that time, I didn't feel like I had anybody. You know, my friend who referred the case to me, he kind of knew both sides, and I don't think he made it kind of clear he didn't want to be involved. And, you know, with Danny gone, I didn't really have anybody else. You know, I do believe I spoke to Miss Adler, Amy, Danny's girlfriend, once or twice. But so I think, you know, looking back on it, this was right around the time that I got the phone call from the pediatrician's office in Miami telling me that Wendy was in there trying to change the the children's primary care physician from the pediatrician in Tallahassee to Miami, and that prompted me to call Craig Isom, the detective who's like kind of the lead agent on the case, because I wanted to make sure he knew. At that point, I was trying to stay out of it. I didn't know Wendy had already packed and been gone within 2 days. I didn't know any of that stuff. I was shocked to find out she was already down there running errands, And so I got on the phone with him, and I believe I asked him because I wanted to confirm that Tamara was friendly to my cause, and kind of wasn't, I don't know, like a double agent for the Adelsons. I mean, that's how kind of paranoid I guess I was at that point. And so I called her back, and I told her that, I asked, Craig what he knew about her, and he clearly had said those words to me. And so I said, I just think you should know. And then she packed and moved the next day and never called me.
I mean, it's so crazy to hear that. Even you're saying that you were like so paranoid you thought that she could have been a quote unquote double agent. That's the kind of like sinister behavior going on here. But Tamara, I've got follow-up questions for you. Number one, it seems obviously like you knew the Adelsons pretty well. I mean, how many times had you met them before? I don't know what you're comfortable sharing or not, so feel free to tell me to buzz off. But like, had you met him a bunch of times previously? And Aaron Brigg, I know you always have to run out a little early. If you have to go, just let us know. But go ahead.
He wants to hear this.
Yeah. I know he does.
What are you talking about?
Go ahead.
I wouldn't say I knew them really well. I had met them at least a handful of times. I had Donna's kugel recipe. After they split up, I had drinks over at Wendy's house with Wendy and Donna in bathrobes, and she was in her bathrobe. I had been over to the Adelsons' house in Coral Springs. Wendy had been over to my parents' house at the time. Really, met after Danny got involved with her. But after her oldest boy was born, I was over there, met them a bunch of times. I went to high holiday services with the family, sat next to Charlie. I went, when they split up, to a birthday dinner for Charlie in October of 2012. Went out dancing with Charlie and Wendy. Wendy and I had, been friends, I thought, for a while, and had spent time together when we could. Again, not super, super close. Even with Wendy, I was friends with her, but not super, super close. And the family, a handful of times, but I had seen them react to different things in different ways over time. So even in a grief-stricken state, when I saw them, there were things that didn't quite sit right. And even now, 11 years, still don't.
Now, I don't have to tell you, Harvey is still a free man. For how long, we're not sure. It could be for the rest of his time, or it might not be. But I guess why the courage now? I mean, Donna's away. We don't know how unhinged or whether he's unhinged at all. But from your take, it seems like he's a pretty intimidating, pretty scary guy. Are you fearful at this moment revealing this?
Thanks for that question. It's taken me a long time to get to this point, as I'm sure everyone can tell. I think I'm in a different frame of mind, different place of life. I had a significant birthday this year, which at least half the people on this call made fun of me for earlier, about 6 months ago. Like, hey, you hit a big number. No, I have it's taken some time to be able to be comfortable. I feel more comfortable because Harvey showed some of his true colors. I mean, he's been sitting passively in all these different instances, and that's the image that he wanted to portray. And I think that people are more open-minded to the possibility that maybe that's not what's behind that image or face at this point. And then people are seeing things, but it's been a timing issue again. People didn't want to believe the Adelsons were involved, and now majority of people believe they were. So it's been a long, very, very long road as a friend as well. Yeah.
So let me also just go back. So you have some suspicion. This is now, for those who don't know, Dan is shot on July 18th, 2014, but he somehow clings on until the following day, so July 19th. And that day, it seems that you have some suspicion, well, maybe the Adelsons were up to no good. And again, we had Josh Berman on recently and other people who knew that the marriage was obviously not, they were in a divorce and the custody battle was going on. But you went over to Wendy's with the explicit reason to try to see if maybe you could get something out of them. And she says to you, "I'm so sorry." That's what she says.
She said, "I'm so sorry." I mean, assuming that Wendy knew about this, and I'm not going to speak about Wendy today.
Yeah.
But, the perspective is, I feel like that may be the only apology that anyone gets for this murder.
Webster, just hearing this as I am right now, I mean, what's going on in your mind? I mean, it's such an unusual thing. This is now the ex-wife who loses her ex-husband, the father of her children, and someone comes over who's admittedly a friend of Dan's, and she says, "I'm so sorry." That's a very, very odd thing to say, to apologize. Maybe, can you believe it? We just lost a great a lot of things, but why is she apologizing? What do you make of this?
The profundity of what she just said right there is like, you really need to take a second and let it wash over you. She just said that that's the only apology anybody's ever going to get for this murder. And truer words probably have never been spoken. It's, I tell my children to trust their guts, trust their instincts. I try to do that in life. The times I don't listen to my voice, my inner voice, I rarely am glad that I didn't. And, I think Tamara went over there looking for something, thinking it might be there, and she immediately sensed that it was. And I mean, that kind of evil, it has to emanate somehow or another, at least, 24 hours after you've executed the plan. So I think anybody who has any intuition and has an open mind would have probably sensed something was off that day.
I do want to qualify that and say that I had no preconceived notion that any specific person was involved. I just felt like something was off, and how the information came to me, because it was, I received an email, which was an awful way to find out. I received an email from a friend in law school who had found stuff on Facebook. That's how I found out. And I hadn't been contacted, anything else. I just, something felt off to me. And my instinct was to go to her house, because I'd been there before and spent time with her there, and spent time with her kids, and spent time with her mom there. And I just drove there on instinct.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a pretty obvious question, but I assume after that, and after your interaction with both Donna and Harvey, were you convinced at that point, that early on, that they did have something to do with this?
I felt like that was a strong possibility. What I did know was that it made me feel fearful. And again, I spent 3 hours at church just talking to the priest with all of my concerns, to try to calm myself down. I was really grief stricken. It was a shock to everyone. But I think when someone passes, you realize the significance they had in your life and the friendship, and it just hits you like this person is gone, and it's a really harsh thing. But even in that state of grief, which is shock, and I will be the first to discount, like, oh well, that was just a feeling, that's not concrete, or you were in a state of grief. Everything that I felt at that point or observed, having had 11 years to be able to look back, there's nothing that I feel differently about. It was still an accurate perception, even in spite of the state of shock and grief I was in.
What about this comment, Tamara? And I apologize to the other guests, but Tamara just dropped a couple of, as they say in news cliches, some bombshells on us. But Joel, from what I heard from Harvey yesterday, he's brighter and more intelligent than what we were led to believe. He's vindictive too. Do you agree with that? I mean, most people kind of, he's always been cast as kind of this like schlubby, soft-spoken guy that takes the back seat. And that is, to me, definitely not the case. I don't know how Carm knew this, but she literally said the first day we ever covered this case, she said that father was involved in this. And I'm starting to look, he has not been indicted, innocent until proven guilty. But he's got an interesting personality. I mean, did you agree with that comment that he's vindictive?
I can't speak to that. That is the sense, that is the image or the feeling that he puts across. I think the passive aggressive moves that he did even with me right after the murder and subsequently does feel like there's at least a little bit of that can be true.
A lot of people are talking about a woman's intuition. Ned Smith here. You can never be too careful, especially women. If you sense something, you're probably right about it. Dave Ehrenberg, and then we'll get back to another clip, but we're going to continue to ask Tamara about this as long as she's cool with it. Dave, I mean, you heard Tamara say she went out that day and bought a gun. You couldn't do that in New York State, but in Florida, you definitely can. Now there's open carry, and you see guys like with these crazy ass guns just hanging out with them. Went and bought a gun and spoke to a priest. I mean, that's pretty significant. Tamara, that's got to mean that she sensed something pretty serious going on.
Yeah, especially because I think Tamara converted to Judaism. But I guess in this kind of situation, you need to talk to a priest. I guess when you need to talk to a priest, you talk to a priest. Also, I thought there was a waiting period. Well, I don't have to ask how she bought the gun, but if you buy from a licensed gun dealer, there's a waiting period in Florida. But it depends. You can get it immediately from a private sale or from a gun show. So I won't ask those questions, but it shows how serious. I mean, I remember for years, there were still many of us who did not want to believe that the Adelsons were involved in this. I mean, who could ever predict that well-respected, successful people in the community who have no rap sheet? I mean, Donna said she never even had a parking ticket. I find that, by the way, hard to believe. A parking ticket.
Yeah,
but,
she definitely had a parking ticket.
I mean, come on, that's another lie. But she was not under oath, so I guess it doesn't matter. But I do think it was such a shock when it finally it was real once you had Katie, Magbanua, and Charlie prosecuted. Once it was just a hitman, you can still have that cognitive dissonance that, who knows who hired them? And, well, did the family really know? Maybe just Charlie did this on his own. Maybe no. The evidence points one way. And I also, to get to your previous question, I was a little surprised by hearing Harvey's voice and to see who he was. I mean, he's a successful dentist. He built a practice. So for those who are thinking that he was Walter, and I had to look up Walter because I didn't know who Walter was, a cartoon caricature. That he clearly is a lot more savvy than that, and that's why it's hard to believe that the family all did this, and yet one member of the family was totally in the dark about it. But I guess we'll see soon enough.
Yeah, again, innocent till proven guilty. But
Correct. Innocent till proven guilty.
Yeah. On that note, let's. I've got other clips of Donna, but let me switch over now since we were discussing Harvey, and we'll get Tamara's take. And is it triggering to watch or hear him? I got to ask you. I mean, was it tough in court yesterday?
It was hard to hear his words, but I think over the course of Donna's trial, I was passing him in the halls all the time, close to the elevator. So I've sort of acclimated to him being around. For the record, for Dave Ehrenberg, I never converted to Judaism, although I greatly respect it and have studied it. So
I'm glad we
bad
clarified
information.
that.
Sorry, I got bad information on the streets.
Yeah, I need a priest for confession. Did he say, has Harvey during the course of the trial, did he say anything to you when you guys crossed paths? Did you just look the other way? How awkward was that?
I think because I had years where I did feel intimidated by him and scared, I didn't know how I was going to feel seeing him for the first time. Harvey passed me all the time. I didn't feel intimidated by him. I don't hold anger. I don't generally get angry at people, but I will say that at some point I felt a little bit of anger toward him when he was passing me. But it wasn't the same. Just
did you bump into him yesterday? Did he know you were there yesterday?
Oh, he knows I was there. Yes.
Yeah. That's from Fairy Glam Psychologist. All right, let's play Harvey. Let's get that comment down. Here's Harvey from yesterday's sentencing hearing.
I have been Donna Adelson's husband for over 50 years. My wife sacrificed everything so that she could pour her heart and soul into our children, our grandchildren, and our marriage. This summer was our 54th wedding anniversary, and I had to spend it without her, hand in mine. She has done nothing wrong, and yet is being punished for a crime that she did not commit. I thought we lived in a different kind of world, but I guess I was wrong.
Sure
I have
were.
listened, watched, and sat in the courtroom for the entire trial, and I could not help but scream in my mind by the witnesses that were brought forward by the prosecution who told outright lies. I didn't know that you could lie in a courtroom.
I'm going to stop right there. I mean, Stephen Webster, everything aside from what Tim Mara just said, let's put that aside for 1 minute. What the hell is this guy thinking? He's in the courtroom addressing the judge. He's about to tell the judge he doesn't like him as well. I mean, what kind of advice is this from the attorneys who are representing Donna here to allow this to happen?
I don't know if this was really on the advice of the attorneys. I think, it was a fait accompli yesterday. She was getting life in prison, period, end of story. That's it. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. So, the other two counts are insurance counts for the state that if she won on appeal, that hopefully one of those would stick. So I feel like it was calculated that, I think that they're trying to still communicate to perhaps some of the community that maybe thinks that perhaps there's some residual doubt about their involvement. I think like Ehrenberg said, and Tim must have said that, they're also really putting it out there for like the grandsons, they're trying to maintain this face of innocence. And, I think they've been lying to themselves for 11 years about it, and they never thought they were going to get caught. And so, I think that's really what the indignation comes from, is they've been exposed. And, what was interesting to me yesterday was for Donna and for Charlie, for all their, protestations of innocence and whatever, they never mentioned Charlie, right? At least his involvement. And this piece of crap right here, who's about to take a shot at the Markels, at a minimum, no reasonable person believes the double extortion theory. No reasonable person's believing that garbage. And so at a minimum, we know that his son took part in the execution of Dan Markel. So, and just for that alone, you think they could have harbored some semblance of genuine remorse or sadness, whatever, empathy for the Markels. It was gross, but these are gross, despicable people. So this may be the first time that they did something just truly remarkably gross, and I wasn't shocked. These people I've been amazed at how they found ways to raise the bar on the amount of depravity I can conceive, because I conceive depravity. I have to see the bad in people because that's part of my job. I can't do my job if I don't see the boogeyman at every turn. These people blow my mind. Until yesterday, they've always raised the bar on their level of their evil, and I've actually been surprised by it. But yesterday, I really wasn't. I was like, I kind of figured there was a chance they were going to come in and just take shots at everybody because they had nothing to lose. Well said.
And I like the energy here from Stephen Webster. Guy takes no
his comment about the Markels lying about not being around their grandchildren is one of the most, that actually did shock me. So I take that back. He found another way to take me to just disbelief.
Yeah, that was that was about as despicable as it gets. So Dave Ehrenberg, I would say again, best guest, better community, and I get a lot of emails, and I try to read every single one of them. This one, I'm not going to give the name, and I won't tell you about how much she says she likes STS at the beginning. I'll cut to the chase here. She says she was really obsessed with the sentencing, and she says after rewatching it, I think everything was calculated by the defense, and I think they knew what every statement said and what Harvey and Donna had prepared to say. They were too ready with case law regarding the non-swearing in of Donna and the lack of remorse issue. I think they purposely were trying to anger the judge because they were desperately trying to get him to do or say something they could use on appeal. Judge Everett was onto them, and did not fall into their manipulative trap. Very interesting take. I mean, I said to you, why didn't, I'm an emotional guy. If they were talking smack about me, I would have shut them up, but he didn't do that.
It's a really interesting take. And I think that they've got a point there, that the best chance they have on appeal is to show bias. And if they can outrage the judge in sentencing, well, that helps. And we talked about this earlier. So it's not crazy. I just, the way I saw that the lawyers went up and seemed to be reading Harvey's statement and for the first time makes me believe that they didn't know exactly what Harvey would say. You would gotta believe that they looked at Donna's statement though, because that shows it'd be totally unprepared if they didn't read Donna's statement. So I guess I can agree in part. I think maybe it was willful blindness. They didn't want to read Harvey's statement, and they were hoping to get that reaction from the judge. But the judge could have yelled at the lawyers. No one wants to be admonished as a lawyer by the judge, and it's just not a good look to have your client or the client's spouse go off on the judge when you've got to do business with that judge again in the future. It's probably not the last case I'll have before Judge Everett. So I think maybe to a point they're okay with booking the judge, but I do think that they at least would have reviewed Donna's statement in advance, but not Harvey's.
Yeah, in about a second, they're going to grab Harvey's statement and basically go to the last page. Before we get there, a quick programming note. Besides this case, the other case that drives me absolutely insane is Ellen Greenberg. If you don't know it, there's a Hulu doc about it right now called Death in Apartment 603. Ellen Greenberg was stabbed 23 times. It's always been 20 up to this point, but it's actually 23 times. She has a huge gash on her head when she's found dead. 10 of the stab wounds are to the very back of her neck and head. One, by multiple pathologists, is said to have been inflicted post-mortem, meaning after she died, and it's tough to stab yourself to death once you're dead. It was originally ruled a homicide, then switched over to an unaliving, which is what we call it on YouTube. And after this 14 years has gone by, the original medical examiner said it was not an unaliving, it was anything but. And now the current medical examiner, because this is going through litigation, once again doubles down. And there's corruption in this story going all the way, in my opinion, all the way up to the governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, who could run for president. He was friendly with these people on the other side, the fiance's family, and he was getting some political donations from them. And we have a couple of guests on the story at 7:00 tonight. And I'm just asking everyone here who can make it, please join the conversation, because it's not going to be me and it's not going to be another podcast. It's going to be you guys, the public, and your voices that affect change here. And we've got Tom Brennan, the private investigator, who is fiery like Stephen Webster. And in addition, we've got Gavin Fish, who's an investigative reporter, and Steve Cohen is working on a third. This is not for me. I am telling you, I just want justice in this case. Please, if you can make it at 7:00, we would be greatly appreciative of that. Without further ado, here's some more. Harvey, I got to tell you, my dad was the soft-spoken, quiet one to my mother's sort of loud, at times overbearing personality. But my father was just everything about him was sweet. Dave had to go. And everything about this guy, just, I don't know. To me, this guy reeks of being like a mob boss. There's just something frightening in the undertone here. Let's continue to watch what he has to say here.
But apparently you can. Danny's parents contend that they have never seen their grandchild. But for years they say they've never seen her. But Wendy has shared with me pictures and videos and letters from their visits. They have suffered immensely at the loss of their son, but they also contend to tell lies to the court about our grandchildren. Donna has always been a loving and caring wife and is innocent of the charges. A biased judge and jury were influenced by years of one-sided news pieces and social media.
Dr. Ms. Fulford, this has nothing to do with the character of the defendant or relates to sentencing.
May I just one moment, please?
Go ahead.
All right, thank you for letting me continue. Donna did not participate in the heinous acts that she was convicted of doing.
We're back to
You're
this.
sending an innocent woman to prison. You have taken my wife and you have taken my life as well. And for what? This is not justice. It is vengeance, and it is wrong.
You know, all about them. That's all I can say, Tamara. Anything surprising there to you? I mean, to me, it's his tone. It's just kind of his aggressive nature there. The judge shuts him down, and then he comes back in a little more kind and calm demeanor. But did any of that surprise you?
Well, they've taken his life, and what was it for? There's no comment about that being related to Danny. It is all about them. You know, I think that there's a story that's probably told in the family to really feel like nothing has been done wrong. So when he carefully says she's done nothing wrong, maybe there's some logic to that in what he's saying in his mind. I didn't know that you could lie in a courtroom, but apparently you can. I know he wasn't present at Charlie's trial, but I thought maybe he listened a little bit. So, I mean, there have been instances of people in his family that certainly did not seem truthful in the courtroom. For him to go after the Markels is vile. It's just disgusting. To make this about them suffering is terrible. I think that perhaps there is still a bit of denial going on there. We talked a little bit in the beginning about Donna feeling pain over the next week or two. I slightly beg to differ. I think that she might be thinking, I'm gearing up for appeal and I'm going to get out of this still. So I think she still thinks she's in a holding pattern, as probably Charlie does as well at this point. Did it surprise me? Some of what he said surprised me. But given the experiences that I've had and how this is played out over time, anything could come out of their mouths. So some of it did surprise me, but in theory, we should be prepared for anything.
Webster, to you, I mean, you had to take this personally. I mean, to have the gall and the audacity to get up there at a sentencing hearing for a murder victim and call the family of the murder victims, who have been nothing but unbelievably gracious to everyone and patient and every other positive attitude, and get up there and call them liars was just beyond the pale. And they've never said, by the way, that they weren't allowed to see the grandchildren. It's always been under really strict circumstances. They've always said that, to me at least. It's just disgusting. I mean, how else do you describe that?
I mean, hatred. That's not a kind of an emotion that I get in touch with very often, but I have absolute hatred for him. And, it just shows you, it undergirds just how much they hated Danny, right? I mean, you think some of that hatred that they had towards Danny and the Markels in general, that it would have kind of been absolved after the murder or diminished or whatever, and regardless of them being prosecuted and held accountable. But I mean, it just really does show you. I mean, they hated Danny. I think then, like Tamara's point, that in their minds they didn't do anything wrong, and that I do believe no matter what, they look at it that way, because they believe that they were justified in killing Danny, and that they didn't do anything wrong in killing Danny, because in their minds, he was basically less than human. And so, yeah, that guy is just an abomination, and I can only hope that he gets held accountable at some point as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really getting these OJ vibes, that they're literally trying to convince themselves now that they had nothing to do with this, and the human mind works in weird ways. Maybe they actually believe that. You are Dan's hero, it said. Stephen Webster. Jan Gould here, thank you for this super sticker. Webster, since you're a practicing attorney in Tallahassee, one of the moves by the defense team yesterday was on count 2 and 3. The conspiracy and solicitation. They asked for 3 years and tried to get time served on those counts. Judge Everett did not laugh in their face, but he said it's going to be 30 on each. What's happening there? Is that just a defense lawyer doing what a defense lawyer is going to do, or is that coming, do you believe, straight from Donna Adelson, who's telling them ask for 3 years, ask for 3 years?
I mean, I think, Donna, how much credit did she have? What, 2 years credit?
About.
So, I mean, I think that, given game time, that if, that 3 years would basically almost guarantee that by the time any appeals or whatever wound down, if count one was overturned on appeal, she would immediately be ready to be released under any circumstances. And, Jackie, they didn't have anything to lose in asking for that. And 3 years sounds like, it's a lot of time. It's more time than I want to spend in jail or prison, but given these circumstances, obviously it wouldn't be at all kind of in line with what she's done. So,
yeah. And Tamara, correct me if I'm wrong, but at one point, Fulford basically threw Charlie completely under the bus yesterday, too, because there's a comment here, Grateful 1111. Thank you for this super chat. Donna did not commit these crimes. I mean, the recorded phone calls with Charlie aren't enough to convince him. Why didn't he finish his sentence? But my son is guilty. At one point, though, it sounds like Jackie basically admitted to that Charlie was involved in this. And even at one point, it sounded like she said something about Donna. I have to go back and watch it.
Yeah, she did. And the part about Donna, yeah, she did say that. It was probably a mistake in her speech, but she certainly did. That was a little shocking.
Yeah. She's a whole other conversation. His ranting about the Markels was so low. Let's just play another clip or two of Donna here. Tomorrow, by the way, we're doing a 12:30 p.m. show. We're going to have another panel, and they literally tried to relitigate this case. Jackie Fulford presented basically another trial after Donna gave her little, sentencing speech, and we're going to break that down tomorrow at 12:30. But here is some more of Donna from yesterday.
180 potential jurors were asked if they had developed an opinion in my case. Those that answered yes also added, I believe she is guilty. Not one person, not one, said, I think she may be innocent. That should have been a clue to the court to grant our motion for a change of venue. But the court denied the motion. One of my jurors admitted during jury selection that she had background information concerning what one of the state's witnesses would be testifying about. Why was she allowed to be on my jury?
What moment?
Another juror.
Mrs. Fulford,
Oh, I didn't hear you.
Mr. Zellman, again, this has nothing to do with elocution of any sort. This is a raising of grievances which are properly given to the appellate court. What does any of this have to do with sentencing?
I mean, Tamara, when that happened, what was the reaction again in the courtroom? Was it just everyone looking at each other?
Everybody looking at each other. I mean, the jurors were sleeping as well. So, there was that. I think another thing that was touched upon in terms of her saying all this for the benefit of the boys someday, there's not a thought of, isn't it important to show accountability? Isn't it important to show compassion, respect for the court? Isn't it important to be an example of showing that there was actual caring for Dan's loss of life? And her words just were empty. And I think of the boys in this, and I hate that this is happening to them. And I hate that this is what's going on with people that they love and care about, because they deserve all the best. But the absolute lack of remorse and accountability, even hypothetically, let's say that Donna and Harvey weren't involved, even saying some sympathy regarding Charlie's involvement, as taking responsibility. And the boys are just on my mind in this moment.
And that's a beautiful thing. They should be on everybody's mind. I think this clip here, because I was going to ask you about it, but I think it's in this clip where she basically invokes Dan's name, calling him Danny, and saying how sad she is that he had died, even though she is the one now convicted for his murder, which is just grotesque, to use a Stephen Webster word that's fitting here. Let's watch this, and then we'll get some analysis and final thoughts on the backside.
Lord Dan Markel was a fine and decent man. He was well educated and passionate about his career. He was a good son-in-law, but more importantly, he was a caring and loving father. On July 18th, 2014, his car was followed, leaving his home. It should have been just like any other day, an ordinary day in the life of Ben and Lincoln's father, but it wasn't. He didn't know when he left his boys off at daycare that would be the last time he would see them, and the last time they would see him. He didn't know when he went to the gym afterwards that would be the last time he would exercise. And he didn't know when he drove home that his life would end within minutes. Danny wasn't just being followed, he was being hunted. He was brutally murdered in broad daylight, sitting in his car, in his garage, by vicious killers. I cannot imagine the terror he felt when he saw a gun pointed at him through the window of his car. I cannot conceive of his heroic efforts to stay alive during the hours after the attack. Danny died in the early morning hours of July 19th.
I can't listen to it anymore. I mean, it's just nauseating. Tamara, when you're in the courtroom, what was going through your mind? This is the beginning of this, by the way. COE let me know we got to watch the last studio where it's emotional. We'll get to that in a second. But in the courtroom, I just can't listen to that, and I want to get Webster's take on it. It's just sickening. I mean, this is the person, again, who she is now not accused, but convicted of murdering, and she's talking about what a great guy he was and that he was hunted.
He was hunted. She was right about that. And that was so hard to listen to as a friend. It was so very hard to listen to, especially knowing, as I mentioned before, that none of those words came out at the memorial service. None of those words came out while Danny was alive. And for her to depict it as a loss to us and, portraying them as we were his family. I mean, none of these things happened during Danny's lifetime. It was absolutely grotesque for her to be talking about how Danny must have been feeling when he was approached by a gun and his moments after that. It was very hard to listen to.
We're gonna have to get, it doesn't take a psychologist, but I really want to get a professional take on this probably at the end of the week. Someone here, Anna Shaw, asking rhetorically, is that why you changed the boys' last names? I mean, Webster, you knew Dan, you were friends with Dan, you were his attorney. It's literally stomach turning. Like, I just can't listen to it. We're going to listen to one more quick clip after this because the COE is going to get mad if I don't. But it's tough to listen to.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that would have been better is if she would have said, his car was followed, and if you give me my 2014 day planner, I can give you the license plate number for it. I wish that would have been added in there. But.
That would have been quite the grand finale. Here we go. You got to have a little humor, as sick and twisted as this is. This is Donna, by the way, Webster, proclaiming her innocence to the world, to the judge, to her own family, to her grandchildren.
Danny was a brilliant legal scholar. He would have been appalled at the total lack of justice that went on during my trial. He would have been embarrassed to have his name associated with any of it. There are two crimes here. The first was Danny being viciously murdered. The second one is taking my life, the life of an innocent woman. Convicting me should not be retribution for Danny's death. That is not justice for Dan. I've always respected the law. I've never gotten a parking ticket, but I'm going to prison for a murder I did not commit.
Brilliant.
I do intend to file an appeal so that hopefully I have the opportunity to be given a fair trial outside of Tallahassee. 11 years ago, Danny was murdered and taken from all of us who loved him. For the past 9.5 years, the state has broadcast to the world, including Danny's parents and sister, that I hired hitmen to kill him. Never in a million years would I have wanted Danny to be harmed or killed, nor could I ever do something that would leave these two small boys to grow up without him. I love these boys more than life itself. This is a lifetime of loss for these children. They didn't deserve this. His family didn't deserve this. Danny didn't deserve this. And so, as I appear before you today, Your Honor, I promise you with my whole heart, I swear to you on my life, I was not involved in any way with Danny's murder. I was not.
Tamara said it best. I mean, she refused to swear and take an oath at the beginning of this, but is now swearing to the judge that she did not commit this crime. It is, I don't know, this is like so twisted that it's almost hard to comprehend, Tamara.
It is, and I wish it weren't true. And she's right in saying that this has affected the boys' lives and shouldn't have happened, and affected the Markels and friends and so many others. It is an absolute tragedy. I don't take any pleasure in this at all. But I am glad that a court, a jury, hopefully the ones that were not sleeping, weighed the evidence and came to a reasonable conclusion. And I continue to hope that full justice will occur in this case.
Webster, she lied again there because she said that she swears that she loves those boys more than anything else, but there's another person she loves more, and that is herself. I have no doubt about that. She's all about Donna and getting Donna out of this situation that she has now gotten herself into. Agree or disagree, and your final thoughts here?
Yeah, it has to be true. You can't love those boys more than anything else and kill the greatest father. I mean that sincerely, the greatest father I ever had the opportunity to observe and to know. And, Dan's dedication to his children was on a level I'd never, ever experienced. I've said it on your show 100 times, or however many times I've been on your show, I've said it. And I'm going to say it probably every time I come here. He inspired me. He made me evaluate the kind of father I was. He made me reevaluate how I took advantage of the time I had with my children, how I was present in moments. He made me really take a hard look at those things and realize I have to do better. I should do better. And he didn't, it's not like he sat around like preaching to me. It was literally just when you met him and you saw the love, it was just unbelievable. And so there's no way you could love those boys more than anything else and take literally one of the greatest fathers you could ever imagine out of their lives.
Yeah, this again, to me, one of the most profound rhetorical questions at the end of a victim impact statement. Was it worth it? Phil Markel wishing for Donna Sue Adelson to live to 120. And you know what? I sort of hope that happens. Now, Donna's stronger, I think, than she appears. I don't know. Someone said yesterday she's not going to make it more than 5 years in prison, but we will see. I don't wish death on anyone. And and that's to Phil's point, wishing that she lives to 120, which is something you say in the Jewish tradition. If you're joining us late, Tamara Demko is a friend of Dan Markel's, was a friend of Dan Markel's, and all around great person. She went to Harvard Law with him, I believe. You went there with Dan, right? Yeah. So, and she was talking earlier about just the day after, or the day that Danny died, which is the following day, because he hung in there for days. She went over to Wendy's with a little bit of suspicion, and Wendy said to her, "I'm so sorry," which is just a very odd thing. And then things went downhill from there with Donna and Harvey. I guess, Tamara, how are you feeling right now? Has this been cathartic for you, and your final thoughts?
I wouldn't say cathartic. I have been holding this for a long time to share. And I think Harvey's talk yesterday made me feel a little bit more comfortable coming forward and talking about this. But this entire case is very sad. This very long quest for justice has been difficult for everyone involved. It's really important to let people know that this type of behavior, this is not a solution. This can't be something that families think of as a possible solution if something is going wrong in a divorce case or a child custody case or relocation situation. It is important that Danny's, as Stephen was saying, Danny was an amazing dad and he leaves an incredible legacy. So his memory, to me at least, and I think to many, many people, has always been and will continue to be a blessing for everyone who has known him and for listeners and other people who've come to know him through this case. So I remain hopeful that justice will prevail, and justice is prevailing, and we will continue to, as another state prosecutor said, stay tuned.
All I can say is we appreciate your courage. Thank you for sharing that story. I know it's not easy to do that. Tamara kind of gave me a little heads up, but I was not expecting what we got, and it was her being vulnerable and letting the world know the truth about these people. So appreciate that. Love you, America. We're doing the Ellen Greenberg story in 29 minutes. Please, please, please come back for that to support Josh and Sandy Greenberg, whose daughter was stabbed 23 times. It was ruled a homicide. Then, after a closed-door meeting, switched to a self-unaliving, which is what we call it on YouTube. And after the original medical examiner said, no, that's not what it is, the current medical examiner, again, has ruled it a self-unaliving. And now the Greenberg family is distraught, and it is far from over. So please join us for that. Justice for Dan Markel. We'll see you at 7 o'clock. Thank you, guests. You're great. We'll see you guys in a little bit.